Good afternoon. Good afternoon to colleagues who are following us online and also here in the Palais, in the media. It is an honor to have the Secretary General of the United Nations with us today, the Minister of Economy and Trade and Business of Spain, Mr. Carlos Cuerpo, of course, Secretary General of UN Trade and Development, UNCTAD, Rebeca Grynspan, and Junhua, Under Secretary General of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, for the launch of the Sevilla Forum of UNCTAD. The speakers will speak in that order, and then the Secretary General will need to depart, and the Minister, the Secretary General, and the Under Secretary General will remain to take your questions. Secretary General, please, the floor is yours.
Queridos amigos, Cuerpo, Lee, and Grynspan, ladies and gentlemen of the media, today's launch is a critical step in bringing to life the Sevilla Commitment and the Sevilla Platform for Action, both announced at June's 4th International Financing for Development Conference. The conference and its outcomes highlighted a key truth. Development is not an abstraction. Development is about families getting enough to eat. It's about children gaining an education. It's about putting health care within reach of all people. It's about clean water and sanitation. And it's about countries creating jobs and opportunities for their people. But around the world, developing countries face a serious barrier to development: debt. Borrowing should work for, not against, developing countries. But countries are getting crushed. Developing countries spend $1.4 trillion on annual debt service. 61 of them spent 10% or more of their government revenues on interest payments last year. And 3.4 billion people live in countries that spend more on servicing debt than on health or education. Countries should never have to choose between servicing their debt or serving their people. In Sevilla, countries agreed to take action to lower borrowing costs, enable fair and timely debt restructuring, and prevent debt crises from happening in the first place. But we all know the resistance that exists in relation to these transformations. The Sevilla Commitment set an ambitious and integrated roadmap to make this happen. And this includes a borrower's platform to give developing countries a greater voice in the debt architecture and new efforts to develop principles for responsible sovereign borrowing and lending. I never forget, in a recent meeting in Paris, when the president of Zambia was describing the operation to restructure the debt in Zambia, telling us that everybody was talking with everybody except Zambia. This is something that obviously is not acceptable. So, a borrower's platform is essential to give voice in the debt architecture to developing countries and to create principles for responsible sovereign borrowing and lending. Alongside this work, the Sevilla Platform for Action included 130 specific initiatives to help developing countries channel public and private finance to the areas of greatest need. The Sevilla Forum on Debt we are launching today is one of the most eagerly anticipated ones. Hosted by Spain with the support of the United Nations, the forum will bring together all partners, including developed and developing countries alike, and finance ministers and creditors in a global dialogue on debt. The forum will sustain political action on the agreement on debt reached in Sevilla, while developing technical pathways to bring them to life. And this includes taking forward the commitment to consolidate and uphold principles on responsible borrowing and lending. And it includes gathering new ideas to advance debt architecture reform, which is long overdue. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sevilla Forum on Debt will help deliver the financial justice that people and countries need and deserve. And the United Nations is proud to be part of this effort. And I thank Minister Cuerpo and the government of Spain for their tireless efforts in this regard. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. I now give the floor to Minister of Economy, Trade and Business of Spain, Minister Carlos Cuerpo. Ministro, por favor.
Muito obrigado, querido Antonio. Dear Secretary General of the UN, Secretary General of the UNCTAD, dear Rebeca, querida Rebeca, and Undersecretary General of UNDESA, dear Liam. I'm deeply honored to be here today to announce the launch of the Sevilla Forum on Debt, one of the key proposals, as the Secretary General just said, during the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development that we just held in Sevilla, taking place in July, as you all know. The Sevilla conference did actually mark a turning point, and I think there is broad consensus on this. 192 countries confirmed in the Compromiso de Sevilla their willingness to work together to renew the global financing for development framework. 130 initiatives were presented by coalitions of countries, international financial institutions, and other stakeholders under the Sevilla Platform for Action. Initiatives aiming or focusing on addressing debt vulnerabilities. Let me stress the importance of this platform for action because it benefits from coalitions of actors willing to move forward and generating change. In this case, addressing debt vulnerabilities as a matter of priority, and with a clear commitment to follow up and stay that course of line. Let me mention two initiatives that are already in motion with the support of several countries, international institutions as well, and even the private sector. The first one is a debt pause clause alliance amid the mainstreaming automatic, aimed at mainstreaming automatic suspension debt clauses in sovereign financing agreements and extending the use of these debt pause clauses to the private sector as well. The second one is the Global Hub for Debt Swaps, which we just launched together with the World Bank last week in the annual meetings of the IMF and the World Bank, and which is aimed at also serving as a permanent multilateral platform to unlock the potential of these instruments of the debt for development swaps. And today, we continue to go ahead with specific deliverables coming out of the Sevilla conference, establishing this Sevilla Forum on Debt. The idea for this is to have space for dialogue, to have an inclusive platform, as the Secretary General just said, that can foster constructive and forward-looking discussions. It will support the articulation of a consolidated set of voluntary guiding principles on responsible sovereign borrowing and lending, and follow, of course, on the different initiatives that were started or kick-started as Sevilla deliverables. Beyond this, of course, also the Forum on Debt will support knowledge generation and capacity building, which is key for developing countries, providing access to technical expertise on debt sustainability, governance restructuring, amongst others. A space for candid discussion on much-needed proposals, bold, if they may, to actually, of course, go ahead, reform and revamp our system, generating political traction to bring about change. So it will complement existing institutions, working with them and feeding into existing mechanisms such as the Paris Club, the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable, as well as the Emerging Borrowers Platform, a valuable addition to this international architecture. The Sevilla Forum, therefore, arrives at the juncture of heightened economic uncertainty, rising sovereign debt, and the need to innovate also in terms of financial solutions. Spain has showed determination in Sevilla, and we stand by that commitment, and we stand ready to build on our agreements We will continue, of course, working with the UN, with UNDESA, with UNCTAD, and other relevant partners to advance that forum, to advance its establishment over the coming months, with a permanent representation in Sevilla, and hoping to have a kickoff, actually, level meeting in the first quarter of 2026. So we hope to count with all actors to be able to contribute to ensure that the forum actually becomes a meaningful lever for more inclusive, balanced, and sustainable global debt architecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Cuerpo. Gracias, Ministro. I now give the floor to the Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, Secretary General Rebeca Grynspan.
Secretary General Guterres, dear Minister Cuerpo, querido Ministro, dear Undersecretary General Lee, ladies and gentlemen, the launch of the Sevilla Forum on Debt marks a real breakthrough. We are proud that the 16th United Nations Conference of Trade and Development has been chosen as the stage for this important step. Here we put the focus on developing countries, on what debt means for their economies and for people's lives. Secretary General Guterres and Minister Cuerpo have already spoken about the challenges we face and the solutions this forum will provide. So allow me to add just one more point. If you look at the capital markets, at the bond markets, the world is not in crisis. Things look stable. There have been no major sovereign defaults since 2022. It's easy to mistake this for success because markets are not suffering, but people are. Right now, countries are avoiding default not by growing their economies, but by slashing budgets, as the Secretary General said, for hospitals, for schools, and infrastructure. Today, as was said, 3.4 billion people live in countries that spend more on servicing the debt than on health or education. It was 3.3 billion people before. So maybe you think it's the same number, 3.3, 3.4. No, it's 100 million people more living in countries that spend more in servicing the debt than on health or education. This isn't resilience. It's a slow erosion of development, one budget cut at a time. The absence of a financial crisis is not the same as stability or prosperity. True stability means countries can plan beyond the next payment, invest in their future, and build, not just survive. What we have now is perpetual crisis management dressed up as normality. This Sevilla Forum on Debt offers a path from that fragile balance to genuine stability and prosperity, not through quick fixes, but through the patient work of building an architecture where debt serves development instead of consuming it, where creditors and borrowers and different stakeholders, academia, private sector, coordinate before crisis hit, where principles guide practice, where lessons learned in one country can inform another. I repeat, this is a great breakthrough. Minister Cuerpo, by hosting this forum, Spain is ensuring that the Compromiso de Sevilla endures well beyond the headlines. You're giving it permanence, resources, institutional weight. UNCTAD and UNDESA stand ready with decades of technical expertise to make this forum deliver real outcomes. The Sevilla commitment was the promise. This forum is how we deliver. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General Grynspan. I now give the floor to the Undersecretary General of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, Mr. Junhua. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Good afternoon, dear members of the press. It is a great honor and pleasure to join the Secretary General and also Minister of Economy and Trade, and also my dear sister, to launch, to witness this special event, to launch this Sevilla Forum on debt. 3.5 months ago, world leaders gathered in Sevilla, Spain, endorsed a landmark document, the Compromiso de Sevilla, charting a new path for the sustainable financing. So today we'll see the first delivery. The Sevilla commitment marked a pivotal moment in our efforts to build a fairer, more development-oriented debt architecture. Let me just highlight the 4 dimensions on addressing the debt challenges. Number 1, prevent debt crisis. Number 2, lower borrowing costs. Number 3, reform the international debt architecture. Number 4, improve the debt sustainability and the credit assessment. These commitments adopted by the world leaders are complementary to the initiatives in Sevilla Platform for Action, which offers practical solutions to translate the vision into the results. Spain's leadership has been instrumental in this regard. The ultimate test, however, lies in implementing the full package of the debt actions, such as the borrower's platform, an initiative to update and better implement the principles for responsible sovereign borrowing and lending, and the intergovernmental process at the United Nations to close the gaps in the debt architecture. This is where the Sevilla Forum on debt can be our catalyst for the action. As the platform for the inclusive dialogue, the Sevilla Forum can help to build the political momentum and the convergence around the key actions. Such dialogue can be underpinned by strengthened technical collaboration and work streams. The forum can support the work on consolidated borrowing and lending principles. It can also be a center of knowledge and learning and the catalyst for greater uptake of the debt pools clauses and the debt swaps linked to the Sevilla Platform for the Action initiatives. So this forum is a crucial, informal, and inclusive space to generate ideas and mobilize multi-stakeholder support. It can build both political support and the evidence-based for decision-making at the United Nations later on. Together, we can and we should turn the promise of the Sevilla into the tangible progress for all. Here we witness the first one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can now take a moment to allow the Secretary General of the United Nations to depart. Thank you. We'll take questions in a minute, allowing him to depart. Thank you very much for your patience. We can now take questions, of course, first from the floor, from the colleagues who are in the room. Please identify yourself and let us take questions from the room. Thank you.
A very good afternoon. Thank you very much for giving opportunity. My name is Nurullah. I'm from Uzbekistan, the journalist from Renaissance TV. And my question to Her Excellency Secretary General. we noticed that the number of ministers to participate in UNCTAD conference are not came to this conference, and most delegations are represented as level of deputy ministers or several similar officials. If this event is truly of such importance, why the overall high-level presence relatively limited? Are there any plans to make participation at the ministerial level mandatory for the future sessions by the UNCTAD? For example, from my government also there is a deputy minister. Minister is not here. Do you have any pressures or suggestions to the governments to be part in this program?
Let me disagree with you. We have around 100 delegations that are coming from capitals. There are many reasons why, I was minister in my government, I was vice president in my government. Many times I wanted to travel and I couldn't because national problems are more important when you are a minister than international ones. And what we have, we did have confirmations for around 60 ministers and 40 vice ministers, and the different issues that were obstacles for the ministers to come were conveyed to us in a very frank manner by the ministers. So now I think that we had 43 ministers and around 50 something delegations, vice ministers from capitals. So I, on the contrary, I see the effort of the countries to be here. Because even if the minister was unable to come, they were kind enough to say, no, it has to go somebody that represents the government, not an ambassador that they could have done that, but at least the vice minister. And we are very grateful to the countries for making that effort. And the high-level conversations that we have had in the panels, in the conference, the rooms have been full, the discussions have been substantive, and we believe the outcome document that is being negotiated will be an important landmark to go for the next 4 years. So I would tell you again, I am grateful to the countries for their commitment and for being here in very difficult times. I won't go country by country, but I can tell you that I know that many of them are right now called for negotiations on tariffs or on trade, and obviously they have to attend the priorities of their countries. So they have been very kind to be in touch, to be engaged, and we only have a grateful attitude towards all of them.
Yes, if I may add, I just wanted to convey again a clear message from the Spanish government of support for Rebecca's leadership and for the work that UNCTAD is doing. My presence here is a token of that support, but it's not just about being in the meeting, it's showing support also in terms of the discussions and in terms of the follow-up of the different initiatives that are agreed upon in the meeting. So it's not just the day of the meeting, but it's what comes actually afterwards, where I'm sure all my colleagues, my fellow ministers, will also be pushing for the excellent work that Rebecca is doing.
Thank you.
Yes, please, from the back of the room, identify, and we can take the question.
Thank you. I am António Broto, journalist for Spanish news agency EFE. My question would go to the Minister Cuerpo. Can I ask it in Spanish? Yes? Okay. Gracias. Bueno, aunque ya ha dado algunos detalles en inglés, querría que nos explicara cuáles son los objetivos de este foro y, sobre todo, va a ser una institución dependiente de la ONU y va a celebrar foros con carácter anual o con cierta periodicidad? ¿Va a ser siempre en Sevilla? ¿Habrá una plantilla allí? También quisiera saber si con este paso España busca mayor proyección internacional.
I will let the minister, and then I can, en inglés o en español, lo que prefiera, ministro.
Sí, respondo en español. Bueno, como hemos dicho anteriormente, este foro de Sevilla es un paso importante que ya pone en marcha una de las iniciativas que habíamos acordado en la conferencia de Sevilla en el mes de julio. Estamos estableciendo un marco para el diálogo en el ámbito de la deuda y su impacto para los países más vulnerables. Un marco en el cual todos los actores principales puedan hablar y buscar soluciones desde países deudores a países acreedores, pero también la academia, la sociedad civil, de tal forma que con la ayuda de un secretariado permanente allí en Sevilla, con la ayuda también y la colaboración de Naciones Unidas, de UNCTAD, podamos ofrecer ese marco que capacite al foro, como hemos dicho, por ejemplo, para tareas tan importantes como desarrollar una serie de principios responsables de endeudamiento que puedan ayudar a ir poco a poco mejorando esta situación tan dramática que ha señalado la secretaria general. Por lo tanto, lo que prevemos es que se establezca físicamente ya en el primer trimestre del año 2026 en Sevilla, como hemos dicho, con la idea de tener por lo menos una gran conferencia al año en la cual podamos ir destacando estos resultados. Yo soy ambicioso y yo sé que Rebeca también, y aquí lo lanzo, no lo hemos terminado de discutir, pero a mí me gustaría que los primeros resultados entregables de este foro pudieran darse de cara al primer aniversario de la conferencia de Sevilla, es decir, para julio del año que viene.
Disculpe, ¿alguna reflexión sobre la proyección internacional de España gracias a este foro?
Sí, perdón. Bueno, lo que tenemos nosotros, o el mensaje esencial es el que he dado también anteriormente, es el respaldo de España a la agenda y al sistema multilateral, y en este caso el respaldo decidido a la agenda de financiación al desarrollo. Somos conscientes de que ahora más que nunca países como España tienen que dar un paso adelante, y la importancia de actos como el de hoy y de iniciativas como la del Foro de Sevilla no tiene que ver con España, sino con el sistema multilateral y el hecho de que nosotros queremos mandar ese mensaje claro de apoyo, de refuerzo, y lo hacemos no solo con un discurso o con la presencia en una reunión, sino yendo un paso más adelante y en este caso poniéndonos a disposición de Naciones Unidas para la creación de este importante foro.
I can attempt to just summarize, John, what the minister has said, but you might need to reach out to our colleagues in EFE. The minister has expressed first the explanation of what the platform is. It's an important initiative and one of the first breakthrough deliverables from FFT4. It's a forum of dialogue on debt where all can participate, borrowers, lenders, experts, and it will have a permanent secretariat in Seville, Spain, to develop key deliverables such as the principles for responsible borrowing and lending. It is hoped that it will begin its work in the first quarter of 2026 in Seville. It's an ambitious project, an ambitious first deliverable, and the minister hopes it will be up and running by the first anniversary of FFT4 in Seville in July 2026. On the question that the colleague from EFE made regarding the projection of Spain, the minister has expressed Spain's full commitment for the Financing for Development agenda and the multilateral system, not just with words, but with actions and deliverables that can concrete impact the agenda. I hope that is what you said, Minister.
Better than I did.
Thank you.
Michelle Angren for Geneva Solutions, sorry. Thank you very much for the briefing. My question was regarding to the Secretary General. Do you see this as a sign that countries who have historically reticent to the idea of having a global mechanism to handle debt restructuring. Would that be something that you see sort of more possible in being one of the ideas that could come out of this forum? Yeah, that's my question. Thanks.
I will allow also USG Lee to come here. Let me try to describe what Seville decided on this, because they decided that there will be a mechanism within the UN framework to discuss about the debt. The modalities of that mechanism have not yet been agreed, and that process is led by DESA. And so I will allow the USG Lee to refer to that. There are two other things that are mandated, yes? One is the Borrowers Forum. That is not a mechanism for negotiation. It's a mechanism, it's a safe space for borrowers to talk between them, to exchange knowledge and experience, because when you are in a negotiating space, whatever you say is part of the negotiation, yes? And many times they don't talk to each other on what they have learned from the negotiations, what has been the experience, what worked or hasn't worked, and the knowledge is lost. One of the things that the borrowers want then is to bring that knowledge for everybody, that experience for everybody, and to talk about the real problems that they are facing in their own management of the debt and negotiations. And so it's strengthening the voice of the borrowers to be better equipped for whatever they have to face in managing the debt or in negotiating the debt. So that is the Borrowers Forum. And the third part has been the working group on a responsible lending and borrowing. And that we hope that in the Seville Forum on debt, that will be taken forward precisely because it requires a multi-stakeholder approach, yes? You have to discuss that with creditors, with borrowers, with academia. You have to see the best ways to make it happen. And the forum also will serve the purpose of an open conversation between everybody in innovating, looking for new ways. And many of the issues that we have put forward before will be discussed in that forum. And in that forum, UNDESA and UNCTAD will support the Spain initiative. And in the Borrowers Forum, together with the rest of the UN, obviously, we will lead as a secretariat on that. So there is a very clarity in terms of what each of us is doing. There are synergies between these different parts that we will coordinate and enhance. And that's the way in which we will approach. Now, a global mechanism for the restructuring, that you know that we have asked for this from ages, it has to be, it cannot be decided by us. Yes, it will have to be decided in the proper spaces of negotiation. But I think that the intergovernmental process in the UN that will be led by DESA will be a very important part of that process. But USG Lee, please.
Thank you, Madam Secretary General. Just a supplementary remarks. It is very true under this Compromiso de Sevilla, leaders endorsed three main tracks to address the debt challenges. Number one, borrowers forum or borrowers platform by borrowers, mainly from developing countries, to exchange, to engage among themselves, then to strengthen their voices in the process, either with the IFIs or with other financial institutions. Second, It's about this working group on the responsible lending and borrowing principles. Now, today, we are going to launch this Sevilla Forum on debt, which actually will first and foremost focused on these principles. And third one, as Madam Secretary General mentioned, that we are going to launch this intergovernmental process within the United Nations. The member states are going to develop and discuss and decide the modalities resolution, how we can operationalize the third stage. All those three tracks would interlinked with each other, complement to each other, and reinforce each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we will take two further questions here. I think our Reuters colleague, and then at the back, one of the speakers has to travel in just an hour, so would I appreciate that you keep the questions clear and short and identify yourself. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, everybody, for this briefing. Olivia Lepoidova from Reuters. Two questions, if I may. The first is, can you outline what challenges you may face in bringing all countries along in supporting this initiative, particularly those who have shown resistance in the past to discussions about debt restructuring? And just also particularly keen to touch on this complex geopolitical environment in which you're launching this initiative. I mean, what impact will that have in terms of this climate of development cuts and attentions being elsewhere, particularly on defense spending, in trying to really drive this initiative home? Thank you.
I can take the first one mainly, the second one I can attempt at it as well. So the idea with the forum is that it's really an open space for discussion and that we are out of the usual straitjacket of institutions which have to do with difficult restructuring processes or others. So here it's really a way for us to think a bit outside of the box and all together, not just creditors and debtors, but academia, civil society and others, and of course with the help of the UN system, we can actually push this discussion further. And with the specific also deliverables, the first one being this set of principles, which will be important also. It's another way to increase this capacity building of debtor countries throughout these responsible principles. So that's how we think with positive incentives, we are planning on not having any resistance, because it's a positive discussion that we are planning on having without restrictions and really in an open way. And on the second one, I think there is, when we talk about financing development and financing growth and creating jobs in the developing world, and I think that this is also part of the discussion on security. To be completely honest, this financing for development is part of the discussion on peace and the discussion on security throughout the whole world, including, for example, the impact of forced migration. So there is a huge impact that we can have on security and peace through financing for development. That's another key area where Spain also wants to lead.
Perhaps the final question, briefly from the back of the room, and then the speakers will have to depart, and any further questions we can take through the press offices of UNCTAD. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is Mr. Liang from China Economic Daily. Thank you, moderator. Thank you, distinguished panelists. My question would need a very brief answer, so this, on balance, it wouldn't take much of your time. We all know what we know about the So what we know about the Sevilla Debt Forum is that it is a perfect platform for dialogue, for conversation. But what is not clear as of yet is what kind of dialogue, what kind of interaction between lender country and borrower country are expected to take place. So my question is this forum going to encourage and accommodate all kinds of dialogue that works to the effect of reducing that burden? Or is there some dialogue which might better take place in a unilateral way that you, in capacity as the forum, say you'd better do it bilaterally? For example, bilateral debt exemption, debt waivering, this kind of thing. Are they going to be also encouraged by this forum? And if so, do you have a fear that this perfectly designed multilateral platform could be misused intentionally or unintentionally as a vehicle for a bilateral race to the bottom, maybe not to the bottom, where every country are taking place, where every dialogue taking place in this bilateral manner? Thank you.
I'll try to give an answer to that. So the main, as you said it yourself, so it's an open space for dialogue and cooperation. And on this, the principles for responsible lending and borrowing, I think, is a good example. But another one, as we just said, would be to follow up on, for example, on the initiative on debt pause clauses. So we have debt pause clauses with the need to enhance their use, to harmonize also their own capacity within contracts, debt contracts in the future. So these are high principles that then can be actually implemented on whichever contract or on whichever debt relationships that will arise in the future. So it is not, I would say, a space foreseen for detailed or bilateral discussions, but really a forum to avoid getting entangled, as I said, in usual straitjackets and having a true open discussion.
Maybe the other day when we were discussing the Borrowers Forum, I got to the conclusion that it's important to say also what these spaces are not, not only what they are. And these are not spaces for negotiating the debt. And I think that that's the important part. And sometimes we get confused, yes? But not in the Borrowers Forum, not in the Seville Forum on debt, are spaces for negotiation. In that sense, we are not competing with the common framework of the G20 or the round table in the IMF, but we think that this will give complementary parts for the decisions that will have to be taken. And tools. And tools, exactly, and tools too. And maybe we will have better solutions to propose because we are doing this. Sometimes, these discussions, and I was in government during the debt crisis of Latin America, so I know what I'm talking about. That many times the discussions, when they don't go out of the walls, they get permanently around the same ideas, yes? And so I think that there are synergies, there are complementarities, but there is no substitution of, the formal mechanisms that have been agreed. So maybe that clarifies.
Well, I think when the FFD4 adopted this commitment, it's very clear. This forum, Sevilla Forum on debt, is not going to replace the ongoing processes, which would mainly focus on multilateral or bilateral negotiation on debt. But here is the forum to inject a new steam for exchange, for dialogue, for understanding with each other, and based on that, we'll see what would be the practical solution for bilateral or multilateral negotiations.
Thank you very much. With this, we draw to a close. I'm afraid the speakers really have to leave, or some will miss their plane. The press release is available in all UN official languages, and UNCTAD press colleagues are ready to support you in anything you may need. Thank you.